right, we're back. Welcome back to Wook Plus for the mid-tour deep dive. We are joined tonight by Benjy Eisen. How you doing, Benjy?
Hi guys, thanks for having me as always.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. And Mr. Scotty B, Scott Bernstein. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. I mean, we are really excited about this. Kevin and we've been doing these after shows after each of they did Dead and Go and now PHiSH. And I was like, man, I really want to just have this summary show where we can really dive in deep and kind of look at a big picture. But we need to get a couple guests on that can like really supplement it and make it extra special. And you two were the first names that came, like instantly the first names that came to mind. So when you both agreed to do it, I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what we were hoping to have. So I'm looking forward to it. I think this is going to be a fun conversation.
This is big time. We knew that you all could step up for the big time.
Well, I love talking fish with all three of you, so this will be fun.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, all right. So I think the best way to start these things off, and you see, we're going to do the structure here, like we just started doing with the live episodes, is I think big picture. We're now, what is that? 14 shows in? I think 12. It's 12 shows in. We've had a chance to digest it a bit and gotten a lot of samples in. Benjy, why don't we start with you? What's your take on how tour's going and how the summer has been so far?
Well, I love the fact that I think leading up to the Trey Trio shows in Denver, I think a lot of people who thought about it figured out that he's doing this probably because he has a new song dump, right? And that was my immediate thought when they announced it, was he's gonna workshop some demos, right? And so I went to those shows in the hopes that that's what he would do, and of course he did them. And I thought sometimes, in the past when he brings a song to Tab, it can take a while before it makes its way to PHiSH, if it ever does. And then other times it's, everything's right, rise come together. Those things were, premeditated, where he does it first with them and then he immediately brought it over to PHiSH. And I felt like he was going to do that this time, but I thought, in keeping with his, MO and in past things, we have a PHiSH dump where the first two shows of the tour, they give us all the new material. That doesn't always go over well with the fans, especially casual fans that are there for one show for the entire year, and they hear a bunch of shit they don't like, or they don't know, rather. Therefore, they think they don't like it, and they're like, "Where's my Down with Disease?" Right. And I think that got back to the band, and the band always listens to feedback. And then they decided to debut a lot of songs, at Halloween, which I think is a great way of doing that. They did it as themselves, and everyone hated on it. Then they did it as a soundtrack, and everyone loved it. And then they did it as a fake band, and everybody went ballistic.
Yeah, lost their minds.
So they figured out how to introduce new material to fans is a thing. And it's funny, I was talking to someone recently who's new to PHiSH, and she was telling me how she's so impressed with the fans for being so open to new songs, and not caring about what song they play that night, but caring more about, how they play and the jams, which is, something we all know. But I was thinking that it's really interesting that they have all these new songs, and we want to hear the new songs, but we also want to, a PHiSH show that rages, and sometimes it can interrupt that flow. So I love the idea that what Trey's done in the theme for this tour has been new material, but like a trickle, one per show.
Yeah.
And some of the new tunes are definitely not new tunes to us. Mercy, things like that, and Flew Away, where I was convinced that I was like, that's a debut, really? Yeah. Are you kidding me? Because we've heard it so much.
I think you're definitely onto something, because as we go through the shows, I have all the vintages, and I was surprised that the average were in the 90s, right? So even though you're getting all this new material, all these new songs, most of the shows were vintage 98, 99, 97. There's a couple early 2000s. It's not like they're just overloading you with all new. They're having raging classic shows with new material sprinkled in. And I think that's a brilliant way to do it.
I mean, classic shows, they did Runaway Jim Foam as an open, like that, which takes you right back to the 90s, to like 94, 93. And then they sprinkle in the new stuff. I think it's great. I'm always a fan of new material, even songs I don't necessarily love immediately. I'm always a fan of hearing it. I want them to play that, because if it was the same set list as 94, as much as I love those songs, like after 400 shows, you're like, okay, cool, I get it.
Yeah,
But it has to be new. That's the whole thing about PHiSH, is it always has to be reinvention. And so
Scotty,
this tour's been reinvention.
I like it. Scotty, what do you take away from the tour so far?
Right after the first song of the tour, Trey came to the mic and said, "I'm so happy the tour's here," and screamed like a 5-year-old.
Right.
And I
Howard
think
Dean, he had a Howard Dean moment.
That set the tone for the whole thing. And, I'll take a minute to go from musically to personally. I had a tough beginning of the year, and I looked a little bit at this tour as work more than fun. And that was the moment for me where I remembered why I do what I do, why I love PHiSH, and how much the band means to me. And I feel like it's just been up from there. And it's been an incredible tour for me. And I feel like they're so comfortable in their own skin, and are trying to have fully embraced their past, present, and future, and aren't trying to be anything that they're not, and in that continue to evolve in a great way.
Yeah, no, I think when you work in this business, either professionally and quite successfully like you two, or on an amateur but somewhat successful as us, but you can lose sight of why we do that, and the whole fun behind it. And Trey's energy is so contagious. When he came out like that, it just, you could feel it go through, the ether webs and out to the people through the webcast and then the crowd and everything. Kev, what are you thinking? I don't want to go too round robin, but I know you've had some theories about this tour.
One thing to Benjy about the new songs, we'll maybe get to this later. I feel like Trey's trying to balance the force by doing some evil songs for once instead of love and light. But beyond that, I feel like this is the greatest hits tour, that every night they're getting a song in, a couple songs in the first set that you've seen 30, 40 shows, you've probably never caught it, so you get to check that off. They're doing some deep jams, to placate the people who love the deep jams. They're doing the new stuff for people like Benjy who are like, come on, give me something new. So I feel like it's the 40th anniversary. Hey, we're going to try to do something for everyone tour.
Yeah. The only downside, I guess, if I can be hypercritical for a minute, is it feels a lot more structured and predictable. I hate to use the word predictable with PHiSH because like nothing they do are, but like it's short hits in the first set, rapid fire. It's, the first and second song of the second set is exploratory. Then it's like classic climax jam to take us out, which is great. And like, that's the formula that's worked forever and we like, but what was really exciting for me in 21 and 22, where they were really flipping that formula on its head and trying really crazy things and placing songs where you never would have heard them before. I felt like the one minor criticism I could have possibly with this tour so far is that every show, some more than others, or some have been really egregious with it, but it's very formulaic, right? It's like, here's our classic opener, here's our hits, here's our jam, here's our climax.
Formulaic. I like that.
It's interesting in that, as formulaic as it is, it's still harder and harder to predict and to pick five and to say what songs, because the catalog is so big and they are hitting every corner of it. So, you'll probably get one McGrupp. You might get two, though. Which, night is it? And when I first started playing Pick 5 in 1994, it was very easy, and you usually got at least two, usually three, sometimes four, sometimes all five, and now it's harder. However, Tim, speaking about the formulaic thing, here's something to keep in mind that I find so fascinating and that I love about PHiSH is every tour has its formula, but they change the formula per tour, sometimes more consciously than others. But the first thing that comes to mind is the Jukebox tour of summer '98, where every summer, every show they're going to do a new cover. Right now, this tour, there's a few hallmarks. One of them is one new tune. One of them is multiple song encores. There were tours in which they flipped the formula on its head, where they were doing show openers in the middle of the set. So, first set songs in the second. There was in 2021 the idea, and that's not the first time, but in 2021 it was one of those tours where any song could be blown open at any time and get the 20+ minute thing. I'm happy to see that in the formula this time are 20+ minute jams. Not that I'm a time king, but I do like. I think it's indicative of an exploratory nature and of risk taking when you see the times posted like that. So they're doing a few long extended jams every single night, which is my favorite, and they are doing multiple song encores and things like that. And I like the formula for this tour. I think it's a wonderful signature for their 40th anniversary.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely benefits to it. I feel like there's been some throwaways where they could have jammed things, or there seemed like there was a lot more potential in certain songs, and that's such a weird criticism, right? Because like, who knows if it was really there? It's like your own expectation in your head. But in comparatively to recent past tours where you felt like they would have taken something and played with it more, that they were just more like rapid fire, like almost like a festival type set where it's like, okay, I got to get to this, got to get to this, got to get to this. At least that's the way it was coming across, I think, watching it for me.
But to me, there's a beauty in that like it's nice when they do a few songs that like the other night when they did Cross-Eyed and Painless, and then like there's when they toss those off. One, like usually that's like the fourth quarter, right? Where they're just trying, but they don't usually put those songs there. But that doesn't mean the jams weren't in the show. So to me, it gives me fresh ears in that I hear a song that's a traditional jam vehicle and they just phone it in. But then 2 songs earlier, there was a 20-minute Oblivion,
Right,
so,
like Oblivion got the jam that Cross-Eyed you used to get.
But the Cross-Eyed into Chalk Dust the other night might have been one of the greatest segues PHiSH ever did. You did not realize that they were playing one song 1 second and another the next. It was just boom, all of a sudden it was Chalk Dust. Fantastic. One of my highlights from Philadelphia, jumping ahead.
Yeah. Well, do you want to go into the various venues and start getting into a little more nitty gritty? Any other thought? Anyone want to have an open throw? Any more big picture thoughts out there? All right, cool. So Huntsville, I'll start just with my quick take on it. I thought this was an outstanding tour opener as a run, and especially night one. I think, not that other tour openers haven't been great, but this one I think was particularly good of a tour opener. Had a lot of things right off the bat that worked really well for it. The vintage on night one was 99 and night 2 was 03. Scott, why don't we start with you and what were your highlights, lowlights, or takeaways from that opening weekend?
Yeah, as I said, I was surprised how strong they came out, and the 5-song encore that was so cool. I mean, ridiculous on opening night. I mean, that's usually like an end of tour treat. Another thing that particularly struck me about those 2 nights was how much PHiSH leaned into the history of Huntsville and showed appreciation for this new city that they were coming to. And
the whole PhD thing and the space stuff, that was great.
Exactly. I thought it really gave extra character and flavor to 2 shows that could have been throwaway shows. And I usually don't go to the first 4 or 5 shows of a tour just because I want to give them time to warm up. And I certainly, if I went to Huntsville, would have left a happy camper.
Yeah, I agree. That Iculus. One other theme I noticed, going back to the big picture, is a lot of these shows left, and maybe that's just PHiSH in general, and it's just I'm noticing more with the earworm of like you hear the crowd talking about it, right? Like read the fucking book, or like the other night was like the bottom of the well, or like there's always something from the show that you just hear the murmurs throughout everybody. And I remember that night, like I wasn't there, but just everybody talking about it online and everything, and other shows with it. Benjy, what about you? What do you think about Huntsville?
Well, I agree with Scotty. I think they came out swinging, and that's not typical for them on a summer tour. And I think a huge part of that has to be that, just like in 2015 when Trey was coming from Dead Camp, I think that this time he was coming from boot camp for his new Psalms, and he taught them to Fishmen. That was the genius of the Trey Trio. It wasn't just his own band. He already taught them the Fishmen, and Fishman's the foundation for anything that PHiSH plays. So So he had Fishman workshop it with him. And then he did the weekend immediately before the midweek tour opener with doing his shows. And also you have Mike Gordon out on a full tour as well. So he's revved up. Fishman got the trio.
Yeah.
Page sat in with Mike. So I think that really paid off hugely. And I also think I just said hugely, but
huge,
but bidly. But yeah, it paid off. And I think the opening night plays, and it even looks on paper like a more like an towards the end of a tour. You have 2001 Down with Disease Twist, and then you have that encore. As Scotty said, you have the Iculus and the encore on an opening night. Nobody saw that coming.
All right, and a Fuck Your Face, which was pretty awesome too.
That's right. And I love the narrative shows that have a story to them, like the OJ. That's one of the things that I really miss about 1.0 PHiSH was that, now each night is different for a different reason, but there was a time in PHiSH's history where every night kind of told a different story and focused on, not every night, but the shows that everybody would collect, the tapes, from the Rotsy to the Murat, the Murat, however you pronounce that, all these shows that have a very distinct fingerprint to them. And this show had a fingerprint to them. It was the space theme and the PhD and the astrophysics. And you don't usually get that anymore, let alone on a tour opener. So I was really happy about that.
Yeah. Kev, what's your takeaway?
Well, we got debuts. We got the Oblivion, obviously. We got, what was that? Ether
Edge.
Ether Edge. And the Fuego. The Fuego with no Viking verse song and 19 minutes long that was almost a train wreck, but turned beautiful.
Yeah, they saved it for sure. That was probably my highlight from that weekend too, was the Fuego. If the Sigma though jam in that was night 2 earlier in the first set was a really good set 1 jam, which kind of made me feel like we were going to get a lot of set 1 jams, and we ended up with not a lot of set 1 jams. But yeah, that Fuego was Fuego. It was really good.
And then the next time they did it, there was no Viking verse. So maybe Trey forgot it. Maybe they decided to drop it.
Well, I won't know until they bring it back, right? It's just one of those things. It's gone until it's not. I think, Benji, you touched on something that's really, I think, on point, is the importance of PHiSH learning the songs, because I think people don't like debuts sometimes because I don't think they're necessarily road ready when PHiSH brings them out. They need to be workshopped and hashed through. All of these songs, whether you like them or not, all of these debuts this tour have been like spot on. Like they sound the way that they are supposed to sound. I feel like I feel like they're workshopped, they're learned, they have them in their fingers, and they're executing them really well.
They've been taking 1 to 2 versions before going type 2 with it, but that's amazing in itself. Mercury took it a lot longer, and all these other tunes. I think you're absolutely right. And the other thing too, though, that I think is, and this is getting ahead of ourselves to the new tunes, but one thing that I think is really cool about it is that with the Trey Trio, we could hear they truly were demo versions. When you go back and listen to them, you hear them, and at the time you're like, you like it or you don't, but like some of these songs like really came into focus when as soon as PHiSH did it, and you heard their arrangement of it, plus with the keys added as an added element. But also with their harmonies on it and all that, and with Mike playing instead of Desron, 2 very different players. I think they really came into I think you're right. They came into their own really early on.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to see that as they roll out more, if they roll out more.
Yep. I agree. Let's move on to Alpharetta if you guys are all right with that. I think this was a powerhouse weekend. The vintages got even earlier. Then it was 2097 and 96. The oldest show was night 3 of Alpharetta with the vintage of 96. Some new debuts we got and Flew Away. The Well came in here, and some monster jams. Kev, why don't we start with you? We'll go back around the horn that way. What were your big takeaways from Alpharetta?
You surprised me that the third night had that early of a vintage with The Well coming out and other songs. But The Well, fantastic. It had a strong first showing there. Won the third night. And Flew Away, I was excited. I think Benji's right. It's one of those ones that sound like they've always been playing it. You just hear it. And it was fun. The second night had the big black furry creatures from Mars and all that nonsense. So I'm a sucker for all that. I want the old crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Would
Yeah,
you
what
guys
about-
put big black fur creatures from Mars? Had it been it had been a really long time since they had done the microphone gag, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They don't
and
do that every time.
Well, a big
No.
black the big black furry pet cat from Mars at Merriweather in 2016 or 2017 they did the microphone gag.
But also Trey often does it higher, you know what I mean? Like that, it's not, you know. And then of course in the 90s you had him running around the stage with the megaphone and
Yeah.
you know antics. But it had been a while since they did antics.
That's
I
why
feel
it's
like
so
that's
cool.
yeah.
It's the performance art, the floor show part of it is the
Yeah.
charm.
Exactly.
What else, Scotty? What about Alpharetta? Anything else stick out to you from there?
The night the lights went out in Georgia was
That was cool.
so cool to have a Fishman song, to have a new Fishman song, and not only that, to then play based on some dude who was smart enough to wear a t-shirt calling out that Fish hadn't played You Enjoy Myself in Georgia in 20 years.
True hero. Guy's a true hero.
And Fish picked up on it and played it to end the run. Like, what a way to go out. Talk about adding character and bringing back that 1.0 flavor of each show being, or each run being special and playing into the venues where the shows are held.
Yeah. I think that's why the main reason I wanted to do this conversation, because like we do each show and it's fun to recap it, but then to go back and be like, oh yeah, that was nuts, right? With the Reba, which isn't a Reba tune, right, Kev? Lights Went Down in Georgia. I was thinking of it as a Reba tune, but it was what's her face?
Nancy.
Vicky Lawrence.
What's her name? Yeah,
Mom-
Vicky
Mama's
Lawrence from
Cameron.
correct.
Yeah.
Carol Burnett's show.
Reba does it though.
Right. That's the
Reba did
version I
cover it.
was thinking of.
Yeah,
It's the one you grew up on.
Nah, I wouldn't say that. It's just whatever. It's the one that Google popped up when I was like, what the fuck are they playing? Benji, what about you?
Oh, I love that. I also wonder if they played Reba 2 songs earlier and Prescient Nod, but because that's a very fishy thing that you know they typically would do intentionally. And
They
to
did
see
do
the
Reba that night.
Didn't they did Reba 2 nights? They did it 2 songs before the night. It was the last second to last song of the second set. So yeah, and then they cover the Reba. Well, they cover a song that Reba covered.
Right.
And I love the fact that we got a Henrietta so early on in the tour that now we've had 2 of them. I also find it really funny that after seeing that, you can say, "Hey, Fishman, you should keep your vacuum job." You know. All of that plays, and I love all of that. But the thing to me about Alpharetta that the very first thing that comes to my mind is this: when I think of Alpharetta nowadays, I think about the tweezer that they played just a few songs into their big post-pandemic comeback. You know, in Alpharetta, and when was that? That was 21.
21, yeah.
And I mean, it was overshadowed in my mind by the Shoreline tweezer that came almost, I think, like 2 months to the day later. But
Same thing
nonetheless,
happened this tour.
nonetheless, that tweezer from Alpharetta and 21 is a masterpiece, and I love it. And oftentimes when they play a monster song, a monster version of a song, then either the next time they play it, like Ruby Waves, when they did Ruby Waves in Alpine Valley, the next time they play it, they kind of kept it short because they, you know, and with Tweezer, it's like when they come back to a venue and they play something that had David Bowie in Providence. When they played David Bowie in Providence, the time after the Providence Bowie, it was a very standard, you know, paint by numbers Bowie, you know. And so I feel that, like, I wasn't sure if they were going to touch Tweezer at Alpharetta, you know, and I think they do remember these things because I'm pretty sure that they have Kevin Shapiro give them notes on, you know, like what was played previously at the venue.
Is that true? Does he actually hand them?
He'll hand them like historic. I don't know if he hands it to them or
Well, like sends it, but yeah, he
sends it. But he does notes, and I don't know how comprehensive they are. I don't know if it's every night, but he will say things like, today was Jimi Hendrix's birthday, or the last time you played here
What a
was
job.
this.
That's a great. We could do that job. That's a great fucking job.
The OJ show was here. He does little things that, and I don't know how thorough he is or how researched he is, if it's off the top of his head, whatever. But he does send them notes, and so I don't know if the tweezer was intentional or if that was on their mind, Alpharetta, if they remember it the way that I remember the 2021 tweezer. But I loved it so much, and it was like PHiSH is back, when they did that. And
how
the
did
tweezer
this one compare? Did you?
It
like
was
this
amazing because I was not expecting it to compare.
Yeah.
I was not expecting it to be as long as it was, and I don't think at the end of this tour it's going to be one of the top 3 jams of the tour.
Yeah.
But when you listen to it, you can't help but love it. It's a monster jam. It's really good.
I think it's funny that you were bringing up the Alpharetta Tweezer 21 and how it got overshadowed, a couple weeks later, because I think that's exactly what happened here. Is, in my opinion, I know I've gotten some pushback on this, but I think the Syracuse Tweezer Oblivion took it to the next level, and up until that point, the Alpharetta Tweezer this year was one of my favorite jams, and then when they brought it back, it overshadowed it again. And I was like, well, shit. I mean, that happens with Tweezer. It's one of those songs. That Tweezer always delivering. Yeah. Also, the my friend. I have to give a shout out to that from that weekend. Was very cool. The longest one to date in history. A nice dark jam out of it. Very cool.
Sounded like they rehearsed too, which was great. For a lot of these nights when they're doing the old material, it sounds like they definitely, not all of them, there's been flubs. We know that there's been some major flubs, but they've also, a lot of the composed parts they've been really nailing, and that means that they've been practicing.
Yeah, that is very true. With the exception of, we'll get there. We don't need to talk about it right now. Listen, I am slightly sleep deprived with having a newborn. I forgot. Did everybody get this talk about Alpharetta? Did I pass it through everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I was like, oh shit, I forgot if we did or not. Do you want to keep moving? Let's go on to Wilmington. Scott, why don't you take us off in Wilmington?
Well, it was an interesting, again, making their debut at a venue. I wasn't there, but I did hear great things about the venue. Heard that it was not very wide, so the sight lines weren't great. It wasn't covered, which became a major issue on night 2 when a huge thunderstorm came through and took PHiSH off the stage about 45 minutes early than expected, with the show getting canceled. That storm, I don't know if because of the way the venue wasn't really covered, and the rain was just coming at the band so hard. It was quite a spectacle.
Page underneath the tarp trying to play.
Exactly. And Fishman was the last to leave the stage, almost refused to leave the stage, brought up that Taylor Swift plays rain shows. Why can't PHiSH play rain shows? And which was particularly cool to see. I thought the shows had their moments. A song I heard the Ocean sing had a really cool jam. But there was these shows didn't leave the impression on me of all of the other shows, that this was the run that doesn't stand out to me.
Yeah, I think this is definitely partially because of weather and partially because of the playing and the song choices. This, I think, is the lull of the tour. It was like a natural, not that it was bad, but it was a little bit lower. Kev, you were actually at night one. What was it like there in person? Because I don't think it translated as well through the webcast, but was it better in person?
The venue was completely flat. So if you were at the back of the lawn, you were standing at the back of a huge crowd, and the stage was not very high. Like I got up to the rail. I was like 2 rows back from the rail is where I watched the show from, because you could just walk up there. And I could the stage was like to here of me standing up. So it wasn't that high. And yeah, the place they were not ready. And there were condos built all around it. I don't see that place being open another 2 years because just it was a hot mess. The show I saw itself, it was one great set of music. That first set was great till the last 3 songs, and then if you had to throw in on the Timber song I heard the ocean sing, you would have had a great set of music. The rest of it, the fourth quarter, Trey went into junk mode. Let me throw out a Numberline. Let me throw out a Bog. Let me throw out a Santos.
Which
No
I don't
flow.
think any of those individually are necessarily junk, but I think stringing them together in the fourth quarter is not an appropriate place. I like Bug. I actually think it's a great song, but I think as the penultimate of the night is a very weird placement for Bug. What do you think, Benjy?
Well, I think that as is often the case with the PHiSH narrative and the fans and the fan base, when there is public sentiment and the court of public opinion judges something, we tend to jump on that. We tend to naturally be in the mob mentality and jump on that and forget some of it. So, and I mean, it happens to me as well. But Wilmington was problematic at points, specifically for flow, and I do think that towards the end they ran out of steam, and that's why the fourth quarter suffered, as it often does. When it does, it's because they're kind of running out of steam and they play these big crowd pleasers, but they're kind of they kind of checked out of the show at that point. Not always, of course, but when the ones we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I think a song I heard the Ocean sing was one of the better jams of the entire tour. The Timberho into that, I thought it was phenomenal as a piece of music. When you take it out of itself and you just listen to that, it stands up. There are textures. There was what I love from 4.0 jamming, where it went from there were movements within the song, within the jam, where it went from one specific section to another spontaneously. So I loved that. And then the next night, I think the rain may have ruined what could have been them saving the run, because that second set they came out swinging with the Chalk Dust into Oblivion, a 17-minute Oblivion, which was it getting there. And I don't think I'm going to go back and listen to that. I listened to that Chalk Dust Torch on Oblivion once after the show. Yeah. I probably won't listen to it again or that night again. But, I see why people say it was the lull. I'll listen to a song you heard the Ocean sing again, and that's it from this run.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lull comparative to the rest of the tour, not necessarily meaning it was bad music.
That said, remember, as much as everyone at the end of this tour is going to continue to hate on Wilmington, the song you heard the Ocean sing may be a top 3 jam of the tour.
Yeah. And you know what else I'll throw some praise to was It's Ice, and only because they've messed it up so bad in recent years. It's one of those songs that you get a little bit, there's a handful of songs that you could tell they haven't practiced or played as well. And I felt like it came out and played it pretty well in Wilmington. But aside from that, I don't really have much to add to that run, and I'm excited to keep moving. Benjy, since you're going, why don't you take us to Star Lake and get us into that run there, that little mini 2-day run over in Pittsburgh?
Let me pull it up so that I have notes here. I don't even remember offhand what they played other than the ass-handed night. Oh yeah, here's my takeaway from Pittsburgh. This is actually, it might get ahead of ourselves, but something that I love, and that's that, as Kevin hinted before, their new songs are definitely not Love and Light variety. It's like End Times variety, right? Like from the Neurosis of Monsters that I love. The Well is a great example of it, because The Well starts out. I think the meme that we may have all seen, but the meme that I love was the Wednesday Addams meme, where it's her roommate for the first half, with all the rainbow stuff, and then Wednesday Addams for the second half. So I love that, and I feel like what they did with the light and dark inside The Well, they did that with Everything's Right, because here's Everything's Right is a Love and Light song, and that jam, which also is a contender for one of the jams of the tour, went right into a dark area, and I love that. So that was my the light and the dark dichotomy there. I thought was great, and then for the ass-handed night, I thought that was had its ups and downs that night, but yeah.
Yeah, just I stopped doing it for a couple of nights, but bring back the vintages. Star Lake Night 2 was the youngest night at 2005. And I think a lot of that had to do right off the bat was they had a lot of Kazvat and sci-fi and some newer songs, and then that Everything's Right in the Soul Planet. But just absolutely killing it. I feel like in the playing and the jamming on those.
And they also debuted Pillow Jets in
Yeah.
Starlight, and that turned out to be, that was a tune that when we talked about the new tunes after the Trey Trio, that was not one of my favorites from the batch. And
Kev was all about it.
Yeah, as soon as it went to PHiSH, yeah, you were all about it though from the very beginning. But
Yep.
I wasn't the
Early
Trey Trio
adopter.
demo. Yeah, there you go. But when PHiSH did it's amazing. It's a great song.
Yeah. And then my other big takeaway I remember was, and I don't think it's that unique, but getting the Maze and Bowie in the same night and how up tempo and high energy the whole playing was. Because Maze is one of those songs too that has triggered a lot of those slower tempo conversations and stuff. And I felt like their playing in night one was great. Scott, what were your takeaways from Star Lake?
I thought the highlight for me was Sense and Subtle Sounds because it concluded where they got cut off the night couple nights earlier in Wilmington. That was the song that got canceled, and they played it so well. Sense and Subtle Sounds was in the summer of 2003 just a platform for some of the most creative improvisation of the summer. And there have been many versions that haven't hit those heights, but the one in Bernstein really did, and was in such a cool place. When Sense is at its best, it doesn't sound like Reba or Curtain With or Harry Hood. It's got its own dimensions that it reaches, and that was one of the coolest versions I've heard in a long time. That really stood out to me from the two nights in near Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that was probably my favorite jam because there were some other big jams that night. The Ruby Waves was one I could think of, but I felt like that night they were a lot safer, and if that's a fair way to describe a lot of the jams. But I feel like the Sense has the most maybe the stash and the Sense had the most interesting places that they went with the jams, and it was nice. You know what else I liked about that, Scotty, was that they didn't start the show, because I remember going out of Wilmington, everybody thought that they were going to start it, and I like that they did that little flip, to subvert expectations just a little bit, and then they paid it off at the end of this set.
Agreed.
I would throw Sigma Oasis out there the first night too as a jam showcase for Star Lake with 17 minutes. And also, it's really interesting to me that it's a second Maze of tour. Usually Maze you get once maybe over a tour, but they brought it back again, I think, because they're feeling it. They're comfortable in it again.
Well, I think it was a redemption one, wasn't it? I think the first one, is that there was one song that they brought back and it sounded way better. The Bowie was the one they brought back. The first Bowie, I think, wasn't really, it was a little sloppy, and then they brought it back the second time and it was like perfect. Actually, I don't remember which one was which, but yeah, the repeats are weird because we'll talk about that towards the end, the songs that have yet to be played and the songs that have been repeated. But it's interesting what the ones that they're choosing to repeat more often this tour. Kev, you have anything else from Star Lake you were thinking?
Nah, I mean, I guess it felt like a summer show. I mean, the Everything's Right the second night was great, but it seemed like it was your standard PHiSH summer show. There was some good jams. There were some, questionable choices for me that they did, but I think everyone walked out happy again because it's the greatest hits tour. The little something for everyone.
There were a lot of songs played in night two at Star Lake. When you looked at the times of those, everyone was 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 minutes. Like nothing was jammed out. They were just hitting it. But then they going back to the formula. Then they come back with that Everything's Right and then give it what you want. All right, cool.
Well, also I do have to say, as much as I love, and I really do love, I look at times and I think that times don't tell the whole story, but they are indicative of the band willing to go off the deep end. That said, a lot of my favorite shows from 92, 93, 94, if you look at the times, it would blow your mind because they just, and they've done that in the modern era too, where there'd be entire tours where they don't go long, but they throw a ton of ideas in there, and the improvisation is still at an optimum level.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what we're seeing though.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what
I feel like these are very radio versions of the song, which isn't bad, right? Like, but I feel like they're very, a lot of the time, especially this night, it's Starlight Night too. I felt like a lot of those songs that sample, the Taste, the Ocelot, the Julius, like they were all like, this is that version of that song that you've heard it 100 times, and it's fine. It was good, but like there wasn't a lot of creativity.
Check it off your stats. You just checking them off.
It was
your
stat
stats.
padding more, I think, than reinterpreting or reimagining those songs. But no, you're right. You can't get, because some of the best jams I've ever heard are those micro jams, those 9 minutes where they're not like too quick, but they don't get really extended, but just instantly jump right into the jams. So you definitely can't get too hung up on the times. Syracuse? Anybody?
I mean, obviously the Tweezer we're going to talk about, but let me throw out the Kill Devil Falls. Yeah. That was 18 minutes that I think was more focused and precise and on than some of the Tweezer was. Tim and I talked about this. I liked after the slowdown part of Tweezer when they went back, but I felt like the first 10 minutes of the jam was standard territory and nothing real special.
Encores are back. Encores have there have been some that weren't great, but like I didn't know with all the Fishman hijinks in Syracuse, what's the use? And of course, Tweezer reprise. I mean, like again, we've talked a couple of times about encores in this discussion, and we're only halfway through the tour. How often does that happen?
Yeah, it's pretty telling, I think. That was a great encore. Benjy, what do you think about this Syracuse show?
Well, the first set was a very, to me, and I mean this in a positive way. It was a very standard summer first set, and that they played some songs. They played Rarities, McGrupp was played, Meat was played, Walk Away, Thing from the Bottom, and Evolve, which I love Evolve, and so I thought it was great. It was a very songy set. The free was typical 8 minutes. I thought it was great, but then Kill Devil Falls, like you said, really, took us to halftime on a high note. And to me, when I look back at the show, it's not just the Tweezer. The Tweezer was great, but it's the welcome to the 20+ minute club Oblivion, moment. And so that was really cool. We knew it was coming. We knew it was coming probably before the tour started. But to see
third one of tour too. That was the third one of tour in 10 shows.
Well, I was predicting wrong, erroneously. I was predicting that, Fish in the past, when they have a new song that they're really that excited about, they'll play it every night, and people forget that. But Fuego was every night, Sample in a Jar was every night. Simple was almost
every time they released an album, it was like that. 09, it was like that. 16,
Landlady,
it was like that.
In 91, Landlady opened up every show for weeks.
Summer 93, 2001 opened up every second set. So you have these, and so I thought that they were going to do that with Oblivion, and I was ready for it. I was like, okay, cool, like this will be fun. And they didn't, but it doesn't surprise me that it is the most played song of the tour, or at least the most played new one. It doesn't surprise me at all.
Those two need to be married, like like Fucker Pants, or like that segue, because I think for me, and I'll jump ahead, but this was my highlight. Like, spoiler alert, I think the Tweezer Oblivion for the whole first half of tour was like the jamming highlight. But on their own, that Tweezer I don't think gets there. It needs the climax and what they do with Oblivion. But the fact that it was such a seamless transition, not just like, it was technically proficient segue, but that the growth of the jam and the through lines went so well, and then you got the bigger climax in Oblivion. I think together that was just the bee's knees for me. It was perfect.
It reminds me of some Tweezer. some
Okay.
tweezer simples. You know what I mean? Where
Mhm.
where like the simple can be the best part of the tweezer jam. You know, like at the Greek in the spring, I felt like the simple to me was part of the tweezer jam. You know, and I think that's what you're getting at. Like that section
Yeah.
stands out. Yeah.
No, it definitely needs to be brought together. I think the whole second set was really good too. I don't know. There was a mix on the Wolfman's. I loved it though. It was a little sluggish and a little bit plotting, but it was so funky. And I think I was, you know what though? You guys get the like post jam high where you're just like you could literally play anything after like that kind of jam, and you're okay with it. You're like, oh man, this is awesome. Who wants to take Kev? Did we all talk about Syracuse?
Yeah, I think we all got in on
I
that.
apologize.
That's all right.
I lost track there. There's been so much going on.
Let me ask a question. I was thinking about this after the first night of the Man. I watched the recap show the guys did, and they were kind of harsh on the show that I thought was really fantastic. And I'm wondering, how much does being in the venue affect your perception of a show?
You ask me, or who do you want to?
Anybody who wants to grab it.
Isn't there a whole podcast dedicated to that? Attendance bias.
Right, yeah.
And there's attendance bias and also recency bias. I also think is a real thing. But I don't know, Kevin, because I'll tell you what, I think that the added element to what you're talking about is with the advent of the live stream, the live stream gives you a better seat than you have when you're at the venue. So you even take away the emotion of it. I feel that like when you're at home, you're more objective about the actual quality of the show. When you're there, it's the experience of being at a show. And
it's the greatest thing ever.
It could be the worst fish show of all time, except for that one time in Amsterdam. Right. I feel like any other fish show, you walk out, and if you had a bad time, that's on you. Yeah. You know. Whereas if you watch the webcast and you watch all of them, you know, or a lot of them, then you're gonna notice when they don't have their best night. And I don't think that was their best night.
Way more critical, because you know I make fun of like Life Beyond a Dream. That second night I was spinning on the steps.
Good, because I love that song. So yeah, I love that song. I love dancing to it live. I just love it when they play it. But I thought Philly was, if I was there, I would have had a great time. I thought that it was saved. It was saved by the well, quote unquote. Right. But
and that Carini was huge.
Yeah, no, the second it was. You know, well, the Trini was. You're talking about the second night, because that was a whole different show.
Yeah, I was gonna say a whole different story. We're talking night one versus night two.
Something happens, and I don't know if it happens to you guys. I'd be interested to hear. But for me, that sometimes one thing will happen in a show, and just like an athlete that gets thrown off, something happens in a show and it throws the rest of my show off. I'm sure that, you know, if they're pissed off about something, if they made a mistake and that's stuck in their head, it can. But you know, for me, it was as soon as when they you know, the walls of the cave was problematic.
Destroyed the night. But it's not just for us though; it was for them. I know what you're saying about like it gets you off, but it got Trey off, and that was the part of it that drove me nuts. Is because he's usually like a vault, right? Like he flubs, and you can't even tell. He comes back and he's playing perfect.
And he's got his game face on, and he showed it.
He showed it so much.
I thought that there was a 50% chance that they're going to stop the song in the middle of it, you know, based on his looks, not based on the music. But when you listen to it back, I don't hear it. But when you see it, you see him look at Paige, and then you see him look at Fishman at one point. Like, what are we doing? Like you know.
And he couldn't find it. He kept trying, and he couldn't find it. It was hard to watch, honestly. It was like
hard to watch.
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Scott, did you want to chime in on that, on Kevin's question?
Yes, I would say I fully agree with Benjy's answer. You're definitely most objective watching a live, or more objective watching a live stream as opposed to being in the motion of the show. I'll also say it could go the other way. You could be having a bad time at the show and not appreciate how good the music is.
I've had that. Yeah. You got a head full and it could go the wrong way.
Yeah. I've had that for sure.
I will say, from my perspective, first of all, my opinions are subjective. There is not really an objective metric. So when you watch these shows and I tell you, because Kev brought it up, and I can say, like, I'm not trying to be like, egotistical, but he brought it up that I was hard on that show. So all of my opinions are subjective, but there's a consistency this tour because they're all viewed through the same lens. I'm watching them on the same device with the same headphones in the same way. I'm taking the same notes and I'm presenting the same information. So comparatively, night 1 to night 2, if I could say it was objective within my lens, I think night 2 was far superior than night 1. I agree with you 100% though, Kevin. If I were there, I think it would have been an absolute blast. And the best shows I've ever seen are the ones that I'm at. I've never once had a live stream come close to a show I've seen in person. They're not even in the same category for me. And you have to give them that asterisk. It's like, oh, this show I saw live was phenomenal. This one I saw on the webcast. But man, the vocals and getting in his head, even after Walls of the Cave in the second set, I felt like it was rearing its head. Like it just got in there and it couldn't get away from it. Like the Well they did, but even out of that, it was like he ripcorded No Man's and it was just like, I don't know.
I thought that Cross-Eyed Into Chalk Dust was one of, like I said earlier, one of the best things I've ever heard. It was perfect. And I know they were short, but I don't care. I love that they did that. And it was just so high energy. People were playing air guitar. I mean, it was amazing.
I mean, I do think that if I was there, I would have loved that second set. I love it on paper. And I listened to it again almost immediately. It was, I think, maybe the only show of this tour that I did that for, because I was so confused and I was thrown off, and from the Walls of the Cave, I was just like, it was one of those nights where it didn't seem like it was sinking. And then I read Twitter where people were praising it, and I was like, was that just my own did I go down this dark corner with it? And I listened back, and it does sound a lot better listening to it than watching it. So, but when you watch it, because when you watch it, you see Trey's face, and Trey definitely had stuff going on. It would be fascinating to hear his take on it, because to see if we're projecting or not. But my projection on him was that something was a little, he got thrown. The Walls of the Cave was, just a low point it was the lowest point of the tour, I thought.
Yeah, by far. Hey, Benji, I'm getting some comments here that your mic might be clipping. Do you have a volume on it?
I do, and I can also lean back.
Yeah, then maybe we'll lean it back a little bit. See, we don't have a producer, but I can do it live on the air. It's casual wookery.
Yeah.
I will. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to say about the run. I saw so many people turn around and walk to the bathroom when they started playing that. And that for me has to be Trey's greatest arena rock song that he's ever written. When he yells liar, I mean, it's so powerful. And then he just shreds. He loves that song. And then I laughed because all those people were in the bathroom when Fluffhead started.
Yeah, I love that song too. I think it's my favorite Ghost of the Force. I don't want to, before we jump into night 2 though, I wanted to say one last thing and open up to you guys, because we jumped all over that. The one nice thing about the fuck ups and like what we were talking about, Benji, was the redemptions. The 46 days wasn't like a particularly long or great, but the playing in it was like, I felt to me like he was like extra ripping it and it had the redemption in his playing. And then the fire at the end, I mean, who knows? Like, I don't know this, but it feels like they added the fire as a fan service, as like hey, this was a wonky night and we want to give you something to be talking about. Because Squirm and Coil is a set closer that throw in the middle. What are the odds of getting a Walls of the Cave and a Squirm and Coil in the same set and neither of them ending the set? Like, they weren't going to do that 46 days. That was we can't end this way. Let me do a redemption. And then Fire at the end of the night. I feel like both of those were, a little extra that they gave to make up for the shortcomings.
It's interesting. I had the same thought as you when they did 46 days, and they were going long at that point, and I just thought, oh, I get it. Like if I just did that, I would also want a shot at redemption.
Yeah. Which is a bold move, because if they fuck it up, it's like then you. Oh, hey, thanks, Slappy. Appreciate the super thanks. Really appreciate it.
I can't wait to talk about night 2 though. Night 2 is a whole. We have a tale of 2 shows here.
Well, 82-minute first set. That second night, that was out of hand.
Yeah. Well, Benji, why don't you take us and start off some night 2 talk?
I just thought by the end of it, I don't know if I felt this way at set break. I doubt it, but at the end of it, I felt that that was the show of the tour so far.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that second set from last night was just chef's kiss. Like I thought it was fantastic. The Trini, I think I tweeted in the middle of the Trini that it was punting the Chase Center Trini. That's not and then I got pushback because people were like, oh, well,
people love it.
And it's like, yeah, of course I love the Chase Center Trini, and I wasn't saying this was better than it. I was saying it was punting it. It was giving it a run for its money, and it was doing something that I love when PHiSH does, and they haven't done it as much this tour, and that's the classic PHiSH tension and release jams. And this was a peak. This was them doing the drop. Like they just built it. The Trini was a tour highlight.
Yep.
The second set overall, from the very beginning through that Harry Hood, where they had some good ideas with it, I felt that it was one of those sets that flowed, that they had extra mustard, in every single song, and then closing it with Life Beyond the Dream, Antelope. I just thought I thought it was everything I want from a second set. And then you look at the first set. The first set's no joke either. You have a MoMA, and the mics.
I was gonna say we need to talk about that mics.
Yeah, and when we talk about segues and returns, that's when I'll talk about the mics. But or maybe I'll just say it now, and that's that my favorite mics are the '93 mics where they're in mid '90s, early '90s, where they're weaving in and out, and they didn't it wasn't quite like that here, but it was really neat. And that where they chose to go back into mics after Boogie On, when we all thought that mics was in our rear view mirror, I thought it was really creative. It was executed very well. And
what was more surprising, when they went on into Boogie On, when they, in the hydrogen spot, or when they went back to mics? Because I was like, oh, that's an interesting choice for Boogie On, but it wasn't like mind blowing, right? It was just like, oh, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
But then to go to second mic was like
back to mics after finishing mics.
That's right.
Second jam.
Scotty's 100% right. That was what was so cool about it too, was them figuring out where to do it. Was really, really neat, because it was, when PHiSH blows open a part of a song that they don't usually explore, or when they take it apart and they segue it in an area where they don't usually. Those stuff, I mean, that's legend right there.
Yeah.
So my take on it, so they get to the end of mics and Fishman starts playing Hydrogen. And then Trey, just over him, starts playing Boogie On Reggae Woman.
That's
and
right.
they go with the Boogie On Reggae Woman.
Yeah.
Then they're jamming a little bit on Boogie On, and Trey steps up to his microphone and puts it so only the band could hear what he's saying. And then they go back into mics, and I lost my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, they pulled that off so well. And what I just described makes me think that before the set, the plan was to go into Hydrogen. Something happened. They went into Boogie On, and that mic's transition that they did was just off the top of Trey's head. All that was told to his bandmates was a sentence over a talkback mic, and they pulled it off so masterfully. It's something they've never done before. And I mean, 40 years into PHiSH, they're doing that. Think of where they're
still surprising us.
95, and 40 years into PHiSH, they're doing that.
Right. Yeah. And the best part is then you still get the hydrogen and everything. It's like you have you know what I mean? It doesn't take away from that part of it, and the Wikipod and everything else. It was, I think, really one of the more inspired moments. Like when I said safe before, I wasn't like trying to be derogative of it, but like this was an inspired, unique, where they go out on a limb and was a really special moment.
The crowd went crazy when they opened with mics. That lawn, everybody was up, feet off the ground. It was a beautiful sight, really.
Kev, what else did you take away from that night? Because you were there. Give us the perspective.
I love Army of One. We got Mound. Two Hay stat patters. Let's give you this. These guys, and I don't know. Everybody was trashing Numberline, but it was CK5's birthday. Come on, cut them some slack. You
It
know,
was a good version of it.
Yeah, it was a good version, and I think the Carini was a nod to him because that's his favorite song.
Yeah.
You know, so they were like, all right, we're going to give you lots of Carini to play with tonight.
I think it was funny because I felt like MoMA got Caspianed, and I was kind of happy to see Caspian get Numberlined. So
Yeah.
it was just like a Trey special.
You know what? I feel like when MoMA gets abandoned, they're just feeling it.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, cool, let's get, do this, because it didn't sound like it was a ripcord to me. It sounded like it was just a natural thing that happened. And hey, we're playing another song.
And I say that tongue in cheek because I thought that I really don't have a lot of complaints or criticisms of this night. I think it was a very great show overall, top to bottom, right from the mics all the way to the envelope. Plus, like, not to be like, oh, set list and old songs, but you get a Mike's groove, a fluff head, freaking Carini, limb by limb, a Golgi, a Hood, an Antelope, all in one show. Like, that's an embarrassment of riches of like just classic great fish, right? Like, you don't even, this is for those people that like, oh, I don't like Soul Plan. It's like, well, you literally, I mean, even though the Set Your Soul Free was good too, but like, this is all of like the best, very best of classic fish, I feel like, given to you in one night.
Can I answer a question from the chat?
Is
from
it Gabriel? Yeah, I was just gonna transition to that. We're on the same page. Hey, we must do this a lot, Kev. You and I were
I would just say that I tweeted from the show last night that Mike Space was the MVP of the tour.
You shouldn't do that. You should enjoy the show. Well, no, I don't mind people. Scott Marks, I love his tweets and all the service. You can too. No, I agree. I think his bass has been, the tone has been fantastic. I don't know. Do you Benjy, Scott, you guys have any thoughts on his new sound and his new bass?
Yeah, I would say that it definitely seems to be more impactful. I went to both nights of Philadelphia, and I just don't ever remember the sound being as crystal clear as it was. I heard everything, every movement, every swipe of a hi-hat just so perfectly. It really seemed like it was dialed in a way that I don't remember before.
Yeah.
I think that that's interesting. Not being at these venues, and the mitts that we're hearing from home is Vance Powell's mitts, which is also fantastic. But I do think that the bass, having a new instrument, is making an impact on the tour. But I also don't think that's unusual, because when Trey gets a new effect pedal, or a new amplifier, when they always Page with new keyboards. They're always tinkering with their gear, and it always turns. Sometimes it has an adverse effect of they do a little bit of a tone workshop, and that's all that they're so like focused on playing with their new toys that it almost interferes with the bigger picture. I don't think that's happening here. I do think that Mike's new bass is it's influencing the jams. It's influencing the sound because it's a new bass. I also think another part of the story here that's less talked about, starting on the Sprint tour, is with all of them going to in-ear monitors. Fishman said that he can hear the rest of the band so much better, and Trey has said that Fishman's being so much more responsive to lighter stuff now, because with the ears. I know that when Bill Treitzman went to ear monitors, it was like night and day. And I imagine that that's the same thing that these guys are, there can be resistance to it for a number of reasons. You lose a little bit of the liveness because you can't hear the audience as well. You do have to use talkback mics because you can't just lean over and say something. But what you gain is, my favorite way to listen to Fish when I'm not at a show is on headphones.
Yeah.
And so it made sense to me that it would work great for them live, because they can just hear every single thing and filters out everything else. And that's for what Fish does, which relies on them being able to hear each other. I think it really is a great little push in that direction.
Yeah, and to that, if you haven't seen Trey's video on Instagram where he talks with Bruno, who does monitors, it's must see, and it explains a lot about about PHiSH's sound and how important Bruno is to the jams because he provides what the members of PHiSH hear.
Yeah. Though I love those videos he does on Insta too, with the different crew members. Do you think? I mean, I'm not. Maybe one of you guys might know. I'm not like an expert on like in your and monitors and equipment and stuff. But do you think the night one issues with the walls of the cave and stuff? Because he couldn't. It seems like he couldn't find pitches, and he kept looking over. I thought he was looking at Page, but part of me was thinking, was he looking at the for the house, you know, like for the in ears? Because like, could that have been a thing where he couldn't hear the mix rate if there was something, a signal going in wrong, and that being why he kept losing it? Because I don't know, like I feel like there's something else going on that for why he lost it so bad.
I've obviously I have no idea. We can speculate, but we don't have any idea. But what I would love to see, and it might be 20 years until we do. I would love it if we could. It's you know, and I don't think or actually we'll never be able to get it because they don't record it. But to hear the band's mixes would be interesting. Because I've been in the position with Dead and Company and with Fairly Well before then, where I have headphones on and I'm listening to Billy's mix, and it is not what you're hearing in front of house. You know, because he doesn't want to necessarily hear everybody. You know, and he doesn't need to in order for him to do his job. And I feel like with PHiSH, I mean, they're obviously, it's really important that they all hear each other. I would love to hear what Trey's saying on the talk back. I would love to hear, like, they do that with sports sometimes, right? So I would love if they released a band mix at some point. But
that would be so cool.
I have a CD of 1994 Chicago Grateful Dead. It's Mickey's Monitor Mix. And it's just basically really loud drums with some bass mixed into the bottom of it.
Yeah.
There are a few on archive. There are a few. There's Bobby's mix, and from the last show, there's the talkback mics.
Yeah,
that would be cool. I think the talkback idea is really cool. You're right, like they do with the mic, the quarterback mics.
Yeah, with hot mics, they do it with sports. I would love to see that with PHiSH. Just because I think it'd be really cool. It'd be illuminating, and it'd be cool.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going live to Trey right now on stage.
Let's go into some of these open-ended topics real quick, because I think this is a nice way to kind of recap everything that we just went through in a little more detail. Top jams, we'll do around the horn. We'll start Kevin, go that way through Scott and Benjy, and then the next one will go the opposite way. What was your jam so far through this tour, Kev?
It's got to be that Carini. I mean, I was just there last night, but it's got to be that Carini.
Wow, yeah. I mean, it definitely had a lot going for it. That blissful MSG Tweezer-esque jam, 22 minutes. Okay, Scott, what about you?
I think last night's Carini was not only a top jam of this year, it's definitely in the top 10 jams I've ever seen PHiSH play. And I wonder, and I'll answer this question again in 2 weeks, where in that 10 it lies. It was that good. Not only do you have that blissful section, but then you have like an evil section after it where Trey played as fast as I've ever remembered seeing him play in the 30 years that I've been seeing PHiSH. It blew my mind. I can't believe what went down in that Carini. And I asked like 20 people, like, was that just me? Was that like, that wasn't just good for this tour, right? Like that was good in any era of PHiSH. And then I started this episode by talking about, the personal stuff, and for them to follow with Joy, I was just left like a puddle, I couldn't have, it was just the most perfect placement ever of a song for me. So yeah, it was the Carini.
Yeah, I agree with the Joy placement too. Absolutely perfect. Benjy, are you going to make this a 3 spot on it? Or?
I agree with everything Scott just said. Including the Joy, which brought me to tears. I think that Carini was definitely the jam of the tour. I do agree that it's an all timer. It will take a little bit of time before I listen to back with it. A month from now before before, like like I said, I agree with everything Scott just said. I do think the runner-up for me is a song you heard the Ocean sing from Wilmington, and maybe the Tweezer from Alpharetta. I'm very curious to see after MSG if those still make the podium, because I'm guessing that there might be a couple of jams in between, but right now it's that Carini.
Yeah. I think the back half of the Carini was what pushes it over the edge. I think the first half was nice. I think the blissful ambient part was good, but the whole distorted, syncopated, like rhythmic jam, and then that build up with the really, you were saying, Scott, the super fast playing, and then the sudden cut into the halftime, which was, basically back to the original tempo because they built it up so much, I think throws it over the edge for me. I have to give a personal shout out, though. Maybe it's like the runner up to the Tweezer Oblivion. I saw a lot of people disagreeing with me, and that's okay if I'm on that island or that hill, but I thought the polyrhythmic stuff they did in the Tweezer, where it's the same Tweezer theme, so it's not like new, but they were doing it swung and then bringing the straight version of it underneath it, so that you had the two feels combating with each other. And then like we talked about earlier, the big climax and what they did in the 20-minute Oblivion, I felt that sandwich or that duo was a tour highlight for me. But yeah, I think this Carini was special. It's maybe a little bit recency, right? We'll see if it's still there. I'm kind of
It is still fresh.
Yeah, it is still fresh.
I mean, less than 24 hours ago.
Right. It is still there, but I kind of feel like none of these. I feel like whatever we get in MSG is going to be ultimately what I think the best is yet to come, I guess is the way to say it. All right, well, let's go to this next one. Out of all the new debuts that we've come, what's your favorite? Scott, we haven't started with you because we're always going back and forth on this loop. Why don't we start with you? What's your favorite of the new debuts?
I'd go with The Well. I think it's the most interesting, the most out of the box, the most lyrically in my wheelhouse. But I'm really impressed with all of the new songs. It's great, and as Benjy said, just consider where we were in 2017 when they were going into the Baker's Dozen, and how many songs have entered the repertoire since then.
It's insane.
I mean, there's going to be so much that doesn't get played over 7 nights.
Yeah. Well is a great song, and what they've done with it too, it's like it would have been good enough just its version, like it's on its own, but then what they did with it in what was that, Philly, and when extending it, I think I agree with you. That might be it, although I'm probably leaning towards Oblivion. What about you, Benjy? What's your favorite debut?
With The Well, I will say I'm fully expecting maybe as early as MSG, but if not, sometime in the near future, them to do a still waiting set with The Well, where they keep going back into the bottom of the well theme, woven in throughout the second set, and I can't wait for that to happen. So because of that, because of the potential with it and the possibility, plus the dichotomy of the light and the dark, two different feels in one song, I think before this tour, just listening to the Trey Trio demos, The Well would not have been my favorite. It was up there. I liked it, but it wouldn't have been like, this is going to be my favorite of the. And now it is. There is I will have to say, as a non-jam tune, there's a really special place in my heart for Monsters, because I
saw you on the socials about it. You're loving it.
I love it. I think it's a dark song that has a little bit of a Gorillaz feel to it. It has a little bit of a David Gilmour feel to it, and the solo, almost a Beatles-esque part too, and I think it's such a nightmare song too, like lyrically, that I just love it. But I don't expect it to be a Type 2 jam. I don't expect it to be the highlight of our sets. It's a song that I'm gonna want to hear for a while for them to play, because I like I said, I love it. The Well, though, I think translates the best to the type of PHiSH that we love, where they're improvising and taking it different places. Oblivion's obviously their favorite. We knew that before the tour started. It was Trey doing it first with in both of his things leading up to it. Tom Marshall tweeting out the lyrics to it. I just felt like it had the whole band behind it. But I love it. It's great. It's not my favorite. I think the well is probably my favorite of the ones they've done so far.
There's
It
still a
might
lot
not,
to go too, though, that they
yeah,
haven't
and
brought back.
there are a few that they haven't, and I have to say that my favorite of the Trey trio. I know this is a hot take. I know it's not. I know that not everyone's gonna agree with me, but I love Perseid. I loved, I love where it
The
came from. I
first
love,
time or the second time?
well, the second the second time from that night. Yeah.
Yeah.
When they actually were able to get through it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's cursed with 400 people too, but
Right.
nonetheless, I love it. I can't wait to hear it with PHiSH with the full treatment. It's a theatrical song to me. It has some Broadway elements, and anthemic. It's anthemic in the way that the end of Drift While You're Sleeping is anthemic, and that gets a lot of people, don't know, not everybody loves that song, but
Yeah.
but I'm a believer in it, and I think that Perseid really, to me, has a lot of potential to be a huge show-stopping number. Maybe not a huge improv number, but a huge, anthemic, pump your fist at the end of the set number. And with it starting out with this beautiful composed part and then ending with the, love now type thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the meantime, what they've played so far, The Well's my favorite of the new stuff. Yeah.
What about you, Kev?
A note on Monsters. The lyric to me sounds like it could be on Holy Diver. If he changed the word I to we, it would totally, I could see Ronnie James Dio singing that song. Not that's neither good nor bad. It's just my observation on it. I want Pillow Jets to take off again. I think that the one they're going to do at MSG, they dive into that kind of fall apart, feedbacky, what are we even doing? I love that. That's the PHiSH that I love when it's totally chaotic. So I'm hoping that one really blows up at MSG.
I think it has the potential to. I will say
I do
that
think we'll get Type 2 Pillow Jets. I do, for sure.
I will say pound for pound, this class of debuts or songs is one of the better classes that
all dark
that they've had in a
all
very
dark
long time.
but
And they've had some
even-
good classes because like Sci-Fi was great, Cosmot was great, Sigma Oasis class. Well, although a lot of those were older songs that they cobbled together, but this I really pound for pound. It's I think a lot of great music.
And I think what speaks to that, Tim, is that even the songs that aren't going to be the show highlights, Ether Edge. I think Ether Edge is a beautiful song. Like and Valdez when they eventually play that. I think that. But Ether Edge, when I heard it, I remember when they played it in Alabama, it was, wow, this is beautiful. This is a beautiful song.
Yeah. All right, cool. So real quick, I want to talk, segues and returns. I actually don't have one off the top of my head. Well, actually, Kev already brought it up. Was the from yesterday. What was that?
2 days ago. Cross-eyed
2 days
chalk.
ago. The cross-eyed.
Yeah, the cross-eyed chalk dust. I think the returns have been fantastic. I feel like Trey has been giving the band, like we talked about in the past, Tim, the couple 12 bars. He started, instead of just ripcording back into the song, he gives them time to catch up. And a couple times on some of the streams, you could see Paige like, oh, okay, boom, and he jump over on the keyboard instead of it already happening, and he's, 2 beats behind.
I think the return to the tops have been better than the segues this tour, where I feel like last year it was a year of great segues. I think the returns have been on point. Although that gin, I'm just thinking about night one of the Man 2, that gin in the back on the train was a really nice segue as well.
That was a really nice segue. My favorite, though, I think Scotty may agree with me, but that the mics going back.
Oh,
in the
right.
Mix. Yeah, I thought it was a genius moment. And it was triumphant.
And that was the whole reason I wanted to bring up segues, was because of that. Hey, Sean, thanks for joining. By the way, good time to say we have members. So
not only was Cross-eyed into Chalk Dust great, but the way they dropped from Piper into Chalk Dust, I feel like they shocked everyone, and that's the best when Cross-eyed comes out of nowhere like that.
Right.
Yeah, no, definitely. Kev, you got that list of not yet played? You want to read us some of that? Pull that up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, there's a couple songs that have not been played in 4.0. Rocky Top, Uncle Pen, and Frankenstein, which were all stalwarts back in the day, but we haven't got a Fee, a My Sweet One, No Punch You in the Eye, or Landlady, either one of them. No Loving Cup, No Scent of a Mule. What else? My Soul comes
Well,
up a lot.
My Soul is an interesting one because haven't they sound checked it like 3 times already? Why do they keep sound checking that and not playing?
Maybe
Is that
it's
just a
just a
good
fun
sound
song
check?
to sound check. You know, it's just a
It-
jam. It's simple.
It
Yeah.
might be my least favorite PHiSH song.
Really?
Yeah, it's
I'm
down
with
there.
you.
It's down there.
We got
For me, the
breaking
biggest
news.
surprise is Rise Come Together.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, that's been on my pick five on my pick five for a few shows now, just because I'm and if you know, I think one of the reasons I had it on my pick five for the man is simply, and I know that this is not something that the guys in PHiSH, or let alone or Trey for that matter, would be thinking of, but when they debuted it in 2017 after it first being a part of the Trey band, then it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they did it right before MSG in Pittsburgh, maybe, yeah, and then they saved it for the last night of MSG, and we knew it was coming at some point, and I felt that was a message that Trey wanted to. I felt from the very beginning this is going to be the last night because Trey wants to leave everybody with this positive message, and so I'm surprised they haven't played it as well.
Yeah.
I think they will at MSG.
And I just I like the song, but I just hate the title. Like, come on, make a decision, Trey. It's okay to call it Come Together. I know the Beatles have the song. It's okay to have another song called
Call it Simple Twist Up Dave Part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, since we're talking about MSG, I guess that's the natural conclusion for this because we've just gotten through the first 12, and now it's like a whole different tour coming up. It's a very unique thing, right? Well, not in the sense that it's a lot of shows at MSG because we had the Bakers, but it's not quite a Bakers. It's just like a mini thing, right? I want to just first start open topic before we get into the predictions of what your thoughts are on this 7. Is there going to be a theme to it? Is there anything special or unique, or is it just going to be 7 raging shows? Because I feel like everything else had been announced, right? Like the Bakers thing had been announced. When they do those kind of gimmicks, there's like something there. Is there anything else to it, or is it just going to be 7 shows? Feel free to jump in. We don't have to round the horn on it.
I think it's 7 shows, and I think that there may even be repeats. I think we may get something like Oblivion twice in the like first or second show and then the last show or something like that.
Yeah.
My call is that the next to last song of the run is going to be a repeat. Like, just not have it be Baker's dozen. But it's funny, a friend asked me about themes and whether each show's going to have its own color. And I said, look, I'm the wrong person to ask. Before Baker's dozen, I thought people were freaking insane that thought that PHiSH was going to go 13 shows without repeating the song. I think my actual quote was, if you think that they're going to go 13 shows without playing Everything's Right 3 times, you're out of your mind. So I'm the wrong person to ask.
That's fair. What do you think, Benji?
I think that there's a chance that they themselves don't know yet if they're going to do a repeat or not. And I would not be surprised if there were no repeats, and I wouldn't be surprised if there were 1 or 2. Oftentimes, look, the Spring Tour was 8 shows long, right? And there are repeats there. And when did the repeats come in? They came in, I think, during the 7th show, maybe during the 6th. But like they could have, like, there was that until they did it. It was, oh, they're gonna do no repeat tour, and then suddenly they do it, and it's like, okay, well, cool, whatever. And I don't think that I think that they would have announced the theme if there's no donut theme, there's no bagel theme, as some people have said. I don't think that there's themes. I think that this is just a part of the tour, but it is, because it's one room. It's going to feel to us as the fans that it's we're going to look at it as there's the whole tour and then there are the 7 MSG, and maybe it's a box set or something, but.
It's definitely a box set, and it's gonna be way too fucking expensive, and we're all gonna bitch about it.
Yeah, but I think I care less about whether or not they end up doing it. I mean, if they do a repeat, it might be Oblivion, right? But I care less about whether or not they do, and or the other thing, which is more likely, is that without talking about it, maybe they, maybe in their minds or in Trey's mind that they won't do a repeat, and then maybe they do because he just spaced it and forgot that they actually already did it, and he wants to play it, and he's not thinking, oh, this is, the fact that he didn't do that at MSG during Baker's Dozen is amazing, and took effort.
Well, because of all the planning, though. I mean,
because
they
of all
put
the
a lot
planning.
of effort into it.
But even with the planning, I mean, I think that, there are songs that I forget that they just did a few nights ago. I'm like, did they do that yet?
Yeah.
And in playing, it's no different, because it all runs together. And also they're sound checking different songs, and let alone in their hotel rooms where they're running through different songs on their bus and practicing and getting into shape. So after all these shows, it's hard to keep track. 7 shows over the amount of over the days that they're doing it. I care less about that, though, as long as they're not doing the same show every night. I care less about that than about how they're going to play it. Yeah. And I do have high expectations for MSG, only because there's a history there, and there's an excitement there. And, there's people I know that don't live anywhere near New York that are posted up for these 7. I'm surprised I'm not one of them. So,
Me too.
I think we're going to, whatever we get, it's going to be great. I think that we are going to see at least 1 new song per night, and I'm excited about that. And not new song, not meaning new, not played yet, but new meaning from this new batch.
This tour, right? Yeah.
Oblivion, yeah. We'll get 1 of the new batch per night. I hope, plus a few debuts.
I hope that they don't repeat, and it's not because I have any problems with hearing the same songs twice, especially when they have different jams. But the thing I loved the most, the absolute thing I loved the most about the Bakers, was the thoughtfulness that went into the set list, and all of that effort he put into it made those shows, I think, as good as they were. It made them spectacular. And this is an opportunity for him to treat and have a mini version of that. And who cares if it's, derivative or redundant or whatever? Like, I don't give a shit. It worked. It's a formula. You're back in your house. I hope that they go and give the same thought to laying out a night, the set list, and planning out the 7 nights so that you have an even distribution of songs, and that the people that are doing the run, that you are thinking about the people that are going all 7, or like me, that are listening to it and webcasting. I'm not going to say the first time I hear repeat that, I'm like, oh, damn it, PHiSH, I hate it. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. But going in, if you have like your wish list or whatever, I hope that there's no repeats, only because I like that effort that goes into it. I also don't think there's a formal theme, but it's like, Benjy, like we were talking about at the top of the show, I think they're going to redo the formula. Like you're saying, they do formula tour to tour. I think they're going to be some formula. Like there was the one run, I think it was the New Year's run, where they had the a cappella encores, or, each night, and like something like where they have something quirky or new about the set list that isn't explicit, but is repeated through the 7 nights, which will make it feel special.
Yeah,
I think they have a new drinking word. Every time Wook says Bakers, everybody has to take a drink there.
I think the things to look for from MSG are going to be the new songs and first time debuts as a part of that, and maybe a new cover or 2 would be cool. And I think they'll continue doing the encores the way that they've done, multi-song encores. And I expect that more than one of them will be something we want to talk about afterwards. The encores, I mean.
Hey, Slappy, I got to defend myself for a second. I'm not an old-timey guy seeing PHiSH in '89 like some of these dudes. I started seeing him earlier, but the Bakers was when I actually became a Wook. I used to be on Wall Street and had slicked hair, no beard, and looked really all put. No, I'm kidding. But Bakers was when I really, I think, drank the Kool-Aid. So I do have a soft spot on it. That was my coming to Jesus, coming to PHiSH. So, all right, guys. I think this has been a really.
I just want to say that it is within the realm of possibility that at 12:00 noon tomorrow, there is a post on PHiSH's social feeds saying, this is the theme. It is everyone wear red tonight. Tonight's going to be red night. And everyone loses their mind. It's within the realm of possibilities. Probably not going to happen. It's within the realm of possibilities. I just want us to have talked about that if it does happen. And tomorrow there's a social post like, this is what's going on.
That sounds like insider information. Like Sky must be like, you heard it here first.
I wish.
I like the 7 deadly sins. Out of all the ones I've heard people throw around, I think that's the coolest and most creative. one, but I don't know if that they would actually do that. But I like that.
Paige did go on. Did you guys see the video of him with, I think, Steve Lacy with the news thing where he talked about SPAC, and it was to promote SPAC and to promote the benefit. But he was asked if there's going to be a theme, and Paige said we're just going to approach this as a tour, as part of the tour. Of course, one, he would say that no matter what, and two, Paige might not even know sometimes, but I feel, I hope, Scott, I hope you're right, because that would, you just got me thinking actually wrong, looking at flights. I expect that MSG will have the best moments of the tour, and I expect that we're gonna have at the end of these 7 shows, we're gonna have a lot of exciting music and exciting moments that we're all really pumped up about as fans.
Yeah, I just want to say I hope Rob Underwood is right that they will do A Train. He's been saying that in shows all tour in the chat. So I'm with you, Rob. We need to break out, take the A Train from 94 or something. They last did it.
Well, what's interesting, Kevin, and I have not insider info on this, but I had a conversation with Fishman at an aquarium rescue unit show. In the stairwell of Pearl Street nightclub when we were smoking a joint, and Fishman happened to be there, and he was talking not to me, he was talking to Jimmy Herring, and I happened to just be there being like, I'm gonna be quiet, I'm gonna smoke this joint, and hopefully they don't kick me out, But he was talking about why they don't do, and this was I'll tell you what year this was. This was 94. And he was talking about why they don't do the jazz standards as early as 94. And he said that now that they're playing bigger rooms, that doesn't translate. And so he was saying, even with Stash, he stopped playing certain notes. He stopped playing certain hits because he said in an arena, you don't hear it, and so he does ghost notes now for some things where he won't even actually do it because you don't hear it. So then he used A Train as an example. And he said, we used to take the A Train, and he said, we can't play that in an arena because it doesn't translate. Would it translate to MSG all these years later? Maybe he was right about that, I think, overall, but that's not to say that there can't be exceptions.
Yeah, or like if they do one of those Sirius XM, small concert things, or like they had the one from the Cube. Like, I feel like there's opportunities maybe we could get it in a small room. I don't know. All right, guys.
Or a big room just for a one-off,
just for the fun of it. Who gives a shit if it doesn't translate?
Take the A Train because of it's just too perfect at MSG.
Right, with the song.
Everyone who took it would be going nuts.
Yeah. Well, for these MSG run, just a quick reminder, 15 minutes after Encore every night, we will be live here recapping whatever they do, theme or otherwise. So subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, or just remember to come back and hang out with us 15 minutes after Encore. Benjy, Scott, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys coming on and having this fun conversation with us. Do you guys have anything you want to plug or mention? I probably should have asked you beforehand, but feel free.
Jam Base, as always, will have the skinny with the recap and statistical breakdown the morning after each show. And very pleased to announce that Benjy will be making his debut writing the recap for the skinny during this MSG run. So that's a thrill for me. I've been a big fan of Benjy's for 30 years. And we'll surprise you with what night it is.
It's a big thrill for me because, Scotty, and I think you know this, but I've told you this before. I'm a big fan of the skinny, and I read it religiously. To me, it's like reading this. Like if I was a sports fan, it's like reading the papers the next day. And it's just a standard for me. Like you go to the skinny. To me, it's become what Andy's page used to be in a way. It's where I go to sometimes check myself to be like, was that jam as good as I thought? Let's see Scott's opinion. And now that other people write it, let's see and so I've always read it, and it's a big thrill for me to be doing it. So thank you for that.
I can't wait to read that. That's why I use it too, is because we do it live, our live reactions right after Encore, so we don't have a lot of processing, and then to go and back check it to people that have had a chance to process a little bit more and get it.
You're like, really damn, I should have said that.
I know. It's like, man, that's a really good point. Why didn't I think of that? All right, guys. We'll see everybody next time. Thank you again. Like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.